What's up, welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Anemone, the new psychological drama film from director Ronan Day-Lewis, starring Daniel Day-Lewis and Sean Bean. Of course, this is the return of Daniel Day-Lewis to the screen as an actor, ending, at least temporarily, ending his hiatus following Phantom Thread's release at the end of 2017. It has quietly been about 8 years between films for DDL, and as we know, one of our greatest actors, one of our most celebrated actors, whether he's the top greatest of all time or not, he's certainly on a very short list when it comes to deciding who that person would be. He is also a very enigmatic and private person, so these past 7 years have been effectively radio silent from DDL and his family and his management and all things like that. So it was a bit curious, what was it, about a year and a half ago when we got word that DDL was coming out of retirement, and it was thanks to the fact that his son, Ronan, was directing his first feature film. I gotta say, on its surface, Daniel Day-Lewis coming out of retirement to make Anemone with his son, Ronan, is one of the better examples of nepotism working in Hollywood. Getting DDL back on our screens after an 8-year hiatus is certainly welcome. That being said, Anemone isn't that great. However, Daniel Day-Lewis is very good in the film, unsurprisingly, and it's, I think, worth watching solely just to see him on screen once again. Whenever the film is focusing on him with a close-up for an extended monologue, it's really good. Overall, though, I think the film largely lost me. I think just story-wise, structure-wise, it wasn't too impressive and a bit uninteresting, a bit dull, frankly. However, there is some engaging cinematography. Visually, it looks quite nice despite only taking place in a few locations. Sean Bean is also able to hold his own against DDL in a much more reserved and less emotive performance alongside Daniel Day-Lewis, so unsurprisingly, is giving a very expressive and, more crackling performance that we've often thought of from him. The initial premise, too, definitely had potential. Sean Bean plays a man who is going to seek his estranged hermit brother who has left the family and gone off to live in the woods alone. Of course, that brother's played by DDL, and DDL has left a wife and son behind, a son he's never known, and what ensues is just a series of conversations between them as they catch up and they spar verbally, and that obviously that things go on from there. But when you get some of these monologues, there's a few moments that really would resonate from the film, where Daniel Day-Lewis is talking about his past and talking about his childhood, and we're really running the gamut here. But there's a few instances where Daniel Day-Lewis's ability to tell a story, to spin a yarn as he's telling his brother about some past trauma, it's really, I think, compelling on the screen. It's just everything else about the movie is just kind of blah. There's kind of the separate B plot of the film, which is between the mother and the son, and they have one kind of conversation where things kind of come together towards the end. I found that side of things a bit uninteresting, and yeah, it's kind of it becomes a bit of a journey movie as they leave beyond, the hermit shack in the woods. But there's also a psychological element to it that I think really falls apart. I think if the movie played it a bit more straight, it would kind of come together a bit more. But there's some, unexplained weather phenomena that happens in the film towards the end. That's just I don't know, it kind of comes out of nowhere. There's just a few threads that get proposed, and it just doesn't all really mix all that well. Nice to see Sean Bean, by the way. Obviously, Sean Bean, he's he's been around. He's still been active lately, but he hasn't had anything quite as high profile in the past 10 years, as opposed to the mid 2010s with Game of Thrones season 1, right? Of course, a legend, right? Boromir Forever, all that. But nice to see Sean Bean, and I think him and DDL had pretty good chemistry despite playing characters that are very different. But there's kind of a quiet composure to Bean's screen presence, especially in this role, that I think worked pretty nicely. But Ronan Day-Lewis, I'll be really interested to see what's next for him as a creator. He's in his late 20s, so obviously his last name and his ability to get his dad to work on this movie together, a large part in why this film came out, premiered back in New York earlier in the fall. that being said, again, the cinematography, the visual ambition of the film, I think definitely, suggests some promise. So I wouldn't be shocked that see him have a fruitful career. That being said, I think like script wise, the movie just really doesn't work all the way. And I should note that this film was co-written by both Ronan and Daniel. So yeah, not everything works. I saw a really amusing Letterboxd comment about Anemone. When Michael Jordan came back out of retirement to play for the Washington Wizards, it was still compelling, but he was also playing for the Wizards. And I think that is kind of an apt way to put it. Like, obviously, Daniel Day-Lewis's resume, his legacy is completely secure, and that story's been told. And this is just like a nice little bonus. And that's really all you need to think about with it, right? I don't expect any Oscar attention due to the poor reception to the film overall, despite Daniel Day-Lewis's, of course, 3-time Best Actor winning, resume that he has. I think this movie's going to largely come and go. Didn't exactly light the world on fire in its limited release thus far. If you've seen it, though, let me know. What did you think of Anemone? Did the more psychological elements work for you? How'd you feel about the script? Let me know. And for more movie reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time.